everyone, welcome to another UrbanSubnet.com video. Today we're going to be talking about IP address subnet mask. The subnet mask of an IP address is used to help us divide the IP network into a network portion and a subnet portion. So you're going to take your IP address and divide that up into two portions, a network and a subnet. Now we have what we call a standard class or default class of networks. Remember we talked about the A, B, C, D, and E classes of networks. Now the class A network was the largest network, and it had a subnet mask of 255.0.0.0. So in that network there was 24 bits available for the host section, which gave us a number of like 16 million hosts, more than 16 million hosts on a class A network. That's the default class A. On the default class B network, the subnet mask was 255.255.0.0, which in itself was a very large network too, with more than 65,000 hosts. And then we have a default class C network, which is 255.255.255.0. That network will give us 254 hosts on that network. That's one of the more usable networks, but 254 hosts may be way too small for some businesses. But those are our default subnet classes. So those classes have been subdivided to create a network portion and a host portion that would give us more suitable numbers for our particular business, or the business that we may be working in, or the business that may be designing or getting ready to build its network. So the subnet mask is a 32-bit binary number used to mask an IP address into a network section and a host section. The host section can be further divided to create more networks. The number of hosts is based on the bit value. If the bit value is 32, then you will have 30 valid host address. In this particular case, when we're talking about host on a network, you have to minus 2, because each network has a network address which you cannot assign to a host, and it has a broadcast address which you cannot assign to a host. So you have to minus 2 when you're talking about the number of devices that you're going to connect to your network. Now when you use subnetting to divide your network up, you will, in the subnet section, the bit value will determine the number of subnetworks you have. So in the subnet section of a network, if the bit value is 8, then you will have 8 subnets, which is different from the bit value of the host. So that is a little bit of a difference in looking at the bit value, but you just have to remember that when you're talking about hosts or computers on your network, if the bit value falls at 16, then you will only have 14 valid usable addresses to assign to your computer devices. Okay, so that's something to remember. Now, to show you that a little more clearly here, we have IP version 4 came out, and the networks were very large, and they were based on that default subnet mask that we talked about earlier. So what they did is they developed classless interdomain routing, which is a system that is used to subdivide the networks even further. So we had a default class ABC. With classless, you kind of take ABC and put that to the side, and you're going to create basically your own class of network, or a classless network. It doesn't fall into the category of A, B, and C. It's a classless network now. So let's take this for an example here. A class B network has a subnet mask of 255.255.0.0.
Written in decimal form, this is what it looks like. In the binary form, it looks like this here. We have 8 ones, 8 ones, 8 zeros, and 8 zeros. So the first 16 bits are on. The second 16 bits are off in the subnet mask. The first 16 ones is your network section. So whatever numbers were in the first 2 octets, that would be your network number. The numbers in the second 2 octets would be numbers of your computer devices or hosts on your network. And as we said, network sections are the ones and the host sections are the zeros. Network section, host section. Now this network can be further divided to make it even more manageable. Okay, so you can take this network and we can divide it again, and we can make it a /20 subnet, which would make it 255.255.240.0 in decimal form. It would look like this in binary. The first 8 bits are on in the first octet. In the second octet, all 8 bits are on right here. And in the third octet, the first 4 bits are on. And I have underlined them to specify that this is not a default subnet. This is a one that we're creating in classes interdomain routing subnet. So the first 4 bits are on and the remaining bits are off. So you have the first 4 in octet 3 on, the last 4 in octet 3 are off. And this is what it looks like in binary. Now when we subdivide our network like this, we end up with 16 networks with 4,094 hosts addressed for each network. So now that's what we have. We have 16 networks with over 4,000 hosts on each network. Now of course you can subdivide that down even more, because every time we take a bit here away from the host section, we create a smaller number of hosts and a larger number of networks. So that's how that would work. So we would have smaller hosts here. We would have less hosts when we continue to take bits away from the host section. Now the bit value of this bit, which is number 20, this is bit number 20, and the value of this bit is 16. So because the value of bit 20 is 16, that will determine the number of networks. So we have 16 networks on this subnet here. So we have 16 networks on this subnet. Now the 12 bits that remain are the host section, and that host section is based on the power of 2. So 2 to the power of 12 is 4,096, and as we said earlier, in the host section you have to minus 2 of those numbers, so that would leave you with 4,094 available usable addresses in each network. Now binary is based on the power of 2, and our binary numbers are 32 bits long. So when we take a 32-bit binary number and we determine how many networks we can get from a 32-bit IP address, we come up with over 4,294,000,000 addresses that we can create from a 32-bit IP address scheme that we use. So that's just based on the power of 2, how many IP addresses we have available in the IP version 4 version of IP addresses. Now those addresses have been running out, so that's why they developed classless interdomain routing to extend the life of IP version 4. Now I'd like to explain that to you a little bit better here. We have a network down here, 128.100.0.0. Its subnet mask is 255.255.0.0. That
This network would give us one network, that's what it is, one network with 65,534 hosts. So that is a large network. Now we can divide that network down even more, like we mentioned earlier. We can have 128.100.0.0, 255.255.240.0. Then that's going to give us 16 networks with 4,094 hosts on each network. Now that network may itself still be too large for some companies. So using this other network number here, we can see how we can divide this. Even this number can be divided down even more, but we're going to take network 172.16.72.0. That's this network here with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Now that's going to give us one network with 254 hosts. But that network, 254 hosts, may be too large for a company. Or they may have this network and they say that, yeah, we want this network, 254 hosts is fine, but we want to divide that up even more. We want to have a sales side and we want to have a marketing side. So we're going to divide this into two sections, and we're going to give half of the IP addresses to the sales employees and the other half of the IP addresses to the marketing employees. So you would go and you would do 172.16.72.0, and you say 255.255.255.128. Now that's going to give you two networks with 126 hosts on each network. So subdividing networks is a subject all in itself. There are many books out about it, and there has been a lot of documents written about subdividing networks in the classes interdomain routing. They're using an RFC for classes interdomain routing. I can't call it off the top of my head, but there is an RFC for that. So you could Google CIDR and come up with a ton of documents and information on the subject. So I just want you to be aware of that. And these can be divided all the way down to, just like the value in your bits, you can divide this down to actually two hosts on a /30 subnet. Now this is a /20. On the /30 subnet, you would take the first 30 bits. So all of these would be ones, and these last two would be 0. That would give you two valid IP addresses. One for one device on one end and another device on another end. And we normally refer to that as a point-to-point network. So you can subdivide it down to very small networks if you need to, if that's what your business requires. Now, I want to share with everyone a couple of links here that will be helpful. I found them helpful with me when I was working and still working in the IT field. So the Subnet calculator is a calculator that you can put your network numbers in your Subnet Mask, and it will spit out to you which networks you have, which subnets you have, how many of each are available based on the numbers you put into the calculator. So that is a good tool to have available for you. I actually had mine bookmarked on my computer. So when I was at work, if I was working on a network and they would say, oh, it's a /22 network, and I was like, oh, /22, trying to figure it out in your head might drive you a little crazy. Just punch it into your subnet calculator and it'll tell you what the IP addresses should be. Classes interdomain routing. This is a link to a document that has some very good information about it. It will show you what all of the subnet masks are, all the way from 1 up to 32. So it would give you the host and everything for all of the subnet masks and some more information on classes interdomain routing, which is a subject all in itself. And then the power of 2 for all of us math geeks out there. I included the Wikipedia page for that, just so you can go out and take a look and see what they have done with the binary system and what can be done with the binary system. So I just wanted to include those links for everyone, and I want to thank you all for viewing the videos, and I do hope that they're helpful to you. And please comment in my comment section if you want me to create a video on a certain topic or something, or you want me to go over something again, just leave me a comment in the comment section. And I want to thank you all for viewing, and everyone have a nice day.